Coming up on Minji TV, Board of Commission meeting of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
At this time, I'll call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Roll call, Markley. Here. Walters. Here. Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Murguia.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Holland.
Here. Tonight, the invocation is being given by Reverend Ken Netling. Now, it lists Faith Lutheran Church, which is true, but maybe we should lift up the pastor of Grace Lutheran Church tonight for the invocation. Please stand for the invocation. Remain standing for the
No
Pledge of
one was
Allegiance.
injured. We think. The building's still there. It is. I just came from there.
He just had a car run into his church.
That's right. But it's okay. It's okay. Well, let's pray. Gracious God, we lift up your name and give you thanks and praise in this season of giving, the season of light. In our Advent preparation, Lord, we prepare for your coming celebration and your coming again. And yet, Lord, you call us to continue to serve and to give and to care. And that's what this is all about. And so we pray your Spirit upon this meeting, this gathering, our community, our leaders, all those who serve, especially our first responders, and for your perfect love in Jesus. It's in your name we always pray. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, in liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend. All right, tonight I will ask if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
Yes, Mayor, a blue sheet was distributed this evening showing updates to the consent agenda. For item 3, a revised ordinance has been submitted which deletes section 3 regarding the offense of sexual battery. New item number 7 is the Legends Auto Plaza third plat. New item number 8 is additional funding for the new South Patrol Police Station. And new item number 9 pertains to the Integrated Overflow Control Plan. And those are all the revisions for tonight's agenda.
All right, thank you very much. They will be considered. Our first order of business tonight is the mayor's agenda, and that is the reappointment of Brandolyn Nichols Brakovich as municipal court judge.
Move approval. Second.
All right. Seeing no questions or comments, is the judge here?
Yes.
Roll call.
Roll call, Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Murguia.
All right, congratulations, Judge. You're welcome to stay for the duration of the meeting, but it's not required. We did put you first on the agenda. You bet. All right. That now brings us to an appearance of the 2020 leadership students. I'll ask the students and their sponsors to approach the microphone for their presentation.
Mayor Holland, Commissioners, thank you so much for allowing us to come tonight and share a little bit about what youth are doing in Kansas City, Kansas. My name's Marilyn Ahlstrom. I'm Director of 2020 Leadership. This is Crystal Nance, and Crystal Nance, we are excited to present to you. She's our Program Director. She's an alum of 2020, and do you want to say anything, Crystal?
I'd like to thank Wyandotte County for allowing me to come work over here with your awesome students.
She says that because she's a graduate of Lincoln Academy in Kansas City, Missouri. So we've got a nice balance from Kansas and Missouri. Just a little background. In 1993, we started as a project, a class project of Leadership 2000. And after 10 years, we decided that we needed to take and spin this program off into its own 501c3. So with grants from the Ewing Kauffman and the Garth Brooks Teammates for Kids Foundation, we moved into Jackson and Johnson County. We went from 36 students and 9 high schools to 17 high schools, and today we will serve 700 students from freshman through senior year. We're excited tonight to share with you students from Piper, Bonner, Turner, and Harmon, and these are projects. And if you have another high school in your district, please know that they will be coming before you too to share their projects. 2020 Olympics started as an outgrowth of projects in our community. After 10 years, we got tired of picking up trash and doing menial jobs, and we felt like we needed to develop a program. And so 2020 is based on a project-based learning model. Some of the main issues that students learn is team building. And team building is probably the most important piece, as you all know, as commissioners and mayor of our city, how hard it is to bring all members together at one time. So we're going to start off with Piper.
Hello, I'm Isaiah, I'm a junior.
I'm Elena, I'm a junior.
I'm Kristen, and I'm a senior.
I'm Anissa, and I'm a senior.
I'm Olivia, and I'm a junior, sorry.
I'm Maria, and I'm a junior.
And I'm Shaylee Kane, and as many assume and ask me, I am not related to Mike Kane, but we are Piper High School. I get questioned a lot.
They're one of the very few Canes in Wyandotte County that's not related to us.
Okay, so we first wanted to start with thanking Commissioner Mike Kane for giving us the $15,000 grant to renovate our library. And so the money basically went towards making our library a very welcoming place. Before we had the money, it was very dark and cold, and it was a very unwelcoming place. And so we basically wanted to focus on 3 zones, individual zone, a group zone, and a help zone, and these really help to make the library a better place for all students.
Okay, so 9,600 of the 15,000 went to our furniture. Before, our furniture was kind of run down, it was old. People didn't really want to spend their time studying with it. So we wanted to plan to make it more modern, more inviting. And so we went to places like Nebraska Furniture Mart, IKEA, and we shopped online a lot. And we got new tables, rugs, sofas, chairs that we could utilize.
So $3,000 was spent on about 13 to 14 Chromebooks, and we basically needed Chromebooks in the library because our technology was currently very slow, and that was one of the main reasons why students came to the library, because they needed to finish homework and they needed some kind of laptop to do so. Also, we spent about $400 well, actually more than $400. But we went to IKEA, Nebraska Furniture Mart, and Erdo's Home Living, as Shaylee mentioned. And we just really wanted to make the library a better place by getting new furniture. And we also got live plants just to make it more livelier and brighter.
Another aspect to make it more live is we wanted to brighten it up a bit, because before we did the refurbishing, it was all white and kind of dragging us down. So we wanted to put warm colors and inviting colors like yellows and purples and blues. So each of our groups, like she mentioned, are different colors. And I think it makes it more welcoming and lively.
So we had 2 key fundraisers this year in addition to the grant, and one of them was a parents' night out where we babysat children in the community. And then another one was a dodgeball tournament where students came out and they competed playing dodgeball, and we gave prizes out to the winners and we had snacks, and it was a great fundraiser. And then all of these things that we put towards the library made it a great place that our students could be proud of and that they wanted to take care of.
And so as juniors, just our experience being in the library, I remember last year it wasn't as bright and as enjoyable and lively as it is this year. And now I go to the library more often because I find myself going more often because of how great it has become. And that wouldn't have happened without the support of you guys for the seniors making the project happen. And so we want to thank you guys for all the support that you gave the seniors this year. And then we would also ask for the juniors as we become seniors next year for our project. We just ask for your support as well next year. And we would very much appreciate that. And we appreciate all that you guys do. And we just want to thank you guys.
So thank you again to especially Commissioner Mike Kane and everyone else who gave us support for renovating our library. Thank you.
So hello, I am Guadalupe Romo.
I'm William Crow.
We're both seniors from Turner High School. And we're here representing all our team at Turner, who not all of us could make it, but we're proud to represent them here.
Thank you. We thank Angela Markley for her support in our 2020 Olympics project. Our project was called Lighting Up Turner. We wanted to put lights on a futsal court in Midland Trail Elementary. We thought this was very important to our community because there's a lot of soccer athletes that really love these courts and wish that they could use them through all hours of the day.
What is that? We thought it was important because we really enjoyed those courts. It's like I'm part of that soccer play group, and I'm like, oh, I would really like this to be renovated so I could play at night. But we decided to start the project. We were picking and choosing a lot of ideas. And then one of the first big steps we took towards making this goal happen was a meeting with Phil, a guy from BPU. He helped us with the planning and the cost of everything. He helped us this plan that it would be $135 every month to pay for the electricity to light up the courts. And then we needed the money to support it, so we asked the Children's Mercy Hospital and Healthcare Foundation of Greater Kansas City. And then they gave us $7,500, which would approximately pay for 4.5 years worth of lighting. And then he'll tell later.
We also met with Turner Parks and Recreation twice. On December 8th, the board of directors met, and they unfortunately decided that they would not install the lights because they want to stick to their Highland Park master plan. This would take 3 to 5 years to install the lights.
And so right now what our team is trying to do is trying to decide what we're going to do with those $7,500. We're trying to put it in some other form into other parks or possibly just into our community to make it a better, fun community.
We also want to take this time to ask you that if you have any friends on the Turner Parks and Rec Board, if you would ask to speak on our behalf, because we are greatly, greatly passionate about this project. And with that, me, Guadalupe, and the rest of Turner High School, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paige and I'm a junior.
I'm April and I'm a junior.
I'm Omarion and I'm a junior.
I'm Mallory and I'm a junior.
I'm Haley, I'm also a junior, and we are from Bonner Springs High School.
Alrighty, before I start, I'd like to say it's an honor to stand with these lovely ladies by my side. We would like to start off by thanking Mark Holland, our Mayor Mark Holland and Jim Waters for the huge grant totaling to $21,000. This has benefited us greatly. Our plan is to finish building our 2 sand volleyball courts. These courts are located at the North Park in Bonner Springs in the same area as our public pool, soccer fields, fishing pond, and our playground and picnic area.
These courts are a good investment because it will offer our community another fun outdoor activity. We believe it will most definitely get its money's worth. It will be open to everyone for a good time. All that is left on the to-do list is to fill with rock, dig holes for posts, order and install the nets and sand. Also, if money is still available, picnic tables to add to the area.
So we are having our opening ceremony towards April, and we're planning on completing this hopefully by the springtime. We're going to be holding a ribbon cutting ceremony, which will be led by a volleyball tournament, and we will all give you specific date as April approaches. You're all invited to enjoy this with us, and thank you for the opportunity to add to our community.
Hi, my name is Stephanie and I'm a senior.
My name's Alicia and I'm also a senior.
My name is Alexis Sonaga and we're here representing Harmon. Today I'll be talking about the Harmon Hub. The Harmon Hub started in 2008. What the Harmon Hub is a plan to better our school and our community. In 2014, we were able to start phase 1, which was a half trail that we now have on our school campus. We were able to raise $160,000, and we have to thank Mayor Mark Holland for the support with the $10,000.
We thank Commissioner Ann Murguia for sharing your time to join us at school so we could learn about the happenings within our community of Argentine. We also thank you for the futsal court that our students will be enjoying, and as well as our community. And we thank Commissioner Mike Kane for supporting the second phase of the Harmon Hub by building the futsal court on the Harmon campus. Everyone knows that our Harmon soccer team is the best in Wyandotte County. And this court allows us to work on our soccer skills on our high school campus.
The lighting of our futsal court is our next step for phase 2, and our goal is to make this possible for students coming after us so they know that we left that and that is our legacy. And we would like to thank you again for allowing us to share about something that is important to fellow students at J.C. Harmon. And we would also like to thank Mayor Holland and all commissioners for your time today.
So, Mayor and Commissioners, we wanted to say thank you very much for allowing us to have resources in our community, finally in our community after 24 years of a leadership program, that we are so proud that our students are able to make a difference in their community and in their schools. So thank you all very much for this evening.
Thank you, and congratulations to all of you. Excellent work. Thank you.
Good.
You also are welcome to stay for the duration of our meeting, but it's not required. They have homework, that's right. Bonner's done, Bonner's done. All right. That brings us to our consent agenda. Please note that we have additions, 1 subtraction and 3 additions to the consent agenda on the blue sheet tonight. But I would invite anyone in the audience tonight who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda to please step to the microphone to do so at this time.
Move to approve all items.
Second. Not removed from the from the consent agenda will be voted upon with a single vote. Let the record show no one is moving forward to remove an item. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Motion carries 10-0.
All right, that brings us to our administrator's agenda, and we're going to start with an information not only for the commission but also for the public about the Village West Star Bond payoff. It was just in the newspaper that it paid off 5 years early. Mr. Bach, I'll turn it over to you for presentation. This will be a brief presentation.
Okay, well, 20 years ago, in a land not so far away from where we're sitting tonight, the governing body at the time elected to move forward with the project, and this kind of denotes in the Village West area, in the area of the Speedway, what that property looked like at that time. We see absent from many of the pictures today. At that time, we used to see a lot of, or we're used to seeing a lot different, but then you can see there were some houses out in that area, but really no development. In 2001 is when things started to change, and that's where we see that the Speedway came into play. And you'll also note that pads were starting to be developed where Cabela's and Great Wolf Lodge sets. In 2004, things really started to take a lot more shape, where you have Great Wolf Lodge opened up, Cabela's, Nebraska Furniture Mart, Chateau Avalon, Applebee's, other restaurants, and then you see the T-Bones up toward the directly north of where the Speedway sets. In 2006, again, we saw some movement with the Legend Shopping Center opening up most phases of that development. Hotels. To the north of that, you can see Piper Plaza open, so we started to see development outside of the Village West coming on at that point. And also medical office buildings that were just across the Hutton Road. In 2008, Target and JCPenney added to the mix, and really, as you see everything else, it just kind of the fill in and more activity with that. In 2010, Schlitterbahn across the highway developed their water park area. Also north of Village West, you see the Plaza at the Speedway development with Walmart coming online, and then pad sites being developed out in the other areas. Also, you can see the extension of what happened at the Piper Plaza area with additional developments coming in around that. In 2012, Kohl's Sporting Park, Kohl's up in Piper Plaza, Sporting Park developed right outside of Nebraska Furniture Mart on that huge pad site that we looked at and said there's no way that could ever be fit into that area, and now it's there today and thriving. Also, the Toyota dealership was built on the other side of the highway, just north of Parallel. In 2014, Sam's Club built at the Plaza at the Speedway. The Honda dealership developed out by the Toyota dealership. Cerner campus was built down on the southern end of the Village West area. And then Village West Apartments, Phase 1, developed out west of 110th Street. And then we reach where we're at today, where we had Phase 2 of the Village West Apartments extended off to the side. The Auto Mall is built. The Dairy Farmers of America international headquarters is almost complete, looking at their opening probably after the first quarter of next year. So this has been many years, and as we started to look at and talk about how we could tell the story of what happened over 20 years and the payoff of the bonds, a picture goes a long ways. But there's also some numbers that go along with this story. And as you can see on the board of what we put up here, there's $650 million in sales that come from the Village West area. $12 million in new annual tax revenue is what's coming to the unified government, which highlighted some of the stories. There's also $42 million that's going to the state of Kansas as a result of this project after the payoff of the bonds at the first part of this month. There's been over $2 billion invested into the Village West area. In Western 435 area produces over $22 million in annual property taxes. So if we go back and think about what the property looked at before, it was generating about $300,000. In the Village West area, it produces $12 million, but the surrounding development that has been stimulated because of the vision to look forward and say, what could happen if we do something here and build something as an attraction, the rest of this has come about. Also jobs, 11,000 new jobs in the area. Village West area does about 5,700. Separating out, Cerner campus has 3,000 jobs in that area. Hollywood Casino has put in 700, and Dairy Farmers 325. And there's a few more in the surrounding areas. So the pictures go a long ways to show us what has happened. We can all go to the area and enjoy what's there, but the numbers have also been one thing that's produced for the vision and the investment that really went into this area, which was investing the money, only the money that was ever generated on site. It never had any money put into it from the general fund of the unified government. Mayor, Commission, that's the presentation. Just wanted to give that highlight about that project and how things can happen over a time period if you do it right.
All right. Thank you. That's going to bring us to our next item. Before we go to the next item, I do want to recognize Representative Tom Burrows of our delegation in Wyandotte County is here. Representative, we're glad you're here. Thank you. We now have a public hearing agenda with this new Star Bond District related to the American Royal. So I'm going to ask our staff to come forward to make presentation on this. We will then open it up for a public hearing for anyone that would like to speak about it, and then we will open it up to the commission after the public hearing is over.
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess as we start this public hearing on this project, it kind of takes you back to where we were in 1997 as we looked at the other project area. We're now looking at a clean slate of property to what's going on west of the Village West area and what potentially could happen in that site. I'll also note as Mr. Brakovich, our Economic Development Director, is here to present on the project. We're not, at this point, we're identifying what could be and what could happen from this. And as we always do with other projects, we'll come back and we'll have development agreements and proposed plans. And that's when we start to get into the detail of what the commission would be committing to, or when we'd start to talk out how we would see the funding lay out. With that, I'll turn this over to Mr. Brakovich.
Thank you, Mr. Bach, Mayor, Commissioners. Good evening. We are here to kind of talk about creating a new Star Bond District, and a big part of that is a proposal from the American Royal. So before I jump in to the presentation, I'd like to recognize a couple of people in the audience. First, Lynn Parman, who's the President and CEO of the American Royal, and Corb Maxwell with Polsinelli, who is representing the developers team on this particular project. So as Mr. Bach referenced, the Star Bond process, it's very similar to TIFs, right? Step one, you create a district, and then you move forward with the plan and a development agreement and how you actually finance any of this stuff and kind of really the details of the package. So to kind of remind you where we are, to even consider creating the district, you have to call a public hearing via resolution. So this body approved that resolution on October 27th, setting tonight for the public hearing date. And then tonight, what's before you is an ordinance that, if you see so fit after the public hearing to pass or adopt that ordinance, would actually create this district. So again, future items, we would plan to advance a development plan and development agreement simultaneously for this project. Typically, you know, we like to do that within at least within a 12-month period, more often than not, much sooner than that. So proposed district map per the resolution. We had to make some edits to this, but I did want to include it since this is the last map we actually talked about in a forum like this. And really, the adjustments are going to be, and I don't know if this has a pointer that I can use, but you see kind of a dividing line between the project is 110th Street, and you have that pink, purplish shaded area and then a yellow shaded area. The lower portion of the yellow shaded area represents land area that included Target, JCPenney, and some outlying parcels. We had some issues with that. That ground was part of the original Star Bond District, although it was carved out and bonds were never issued against the revenue generated there. But it's also currently part of the overlay district that was created for the National Training Center, which we'll talk about a little bit later tonight. But again, no bonds were actually issued from the revenues from that project. However, last summer, some of the language with the changes in the legislation, it was very specific just about land, any land that had been included, and it didn't differentiate between accounting for revenues or not. So tonight we're coming before you with a revised district map then that would exclude that particular area but leave the other parameters in place. And again, you can see, I'll focus on the pink shaded area first, State Avenue on the south, basically 118th on the west, except for picking up a few parcels that have State Avenue frontage, parallel on the north, and then 110th Street. The carve out there are the two existing apartment projects as well as the Baptist Church. Then in the yellow, the overlay district is basically the Piper Plaza and Plaza at the Speedway area. The reason for the different shading is in our early discussions of how this project would be financed or what kind of sales tax revenue would be pledged back into it. And again, this will all be detailed later as we negotiate and develop a plan and a development agreement. But in principle, what we've relayed to the development team is, look, as far as this new ground, the pink area that's vacant, I think we are open for negotiations to consider having both a local and a state pledge come from that development area. And I've got a slide later that kind of probably highlights why we would be interested in doing that. But for the proposed overlay district into the Piper Plaza and Plaza at the Speedway area, staff's maintained a position on that we've worked really hard to create those projects and that development, and there's some positive revenue being generated there. And if to put it simply and bluntly, I guess, if the state was interested in redirecting some revenue from that's their call, and we wouldn't oppose that. However, we're not open to including any local revenue share pledged back into a new project in the pink area. So again, just an aerial of the site. You'll see, if you can envision 110th Street. You see really the stuff on the west is pretty much vacant ground. And then obviously you're pretty familiar with the Piper Plaza and Plaza at the Speedway area. So a little bit of the details of the district then. So again, focusing on that area to the southwest, it is, 400 plus acres of vacant ground. Currently it produces $25,000 in annual property tax, and as best as I could tell, there are no sales tax revenue being generated from the site. So that's why we feel it's an optimal area to look at for development. Just not a lot going on right there. However, it's adjacent to very active development areas, and we feel that, as Mr. Bach's presentation went through, it's clear that over the years we've moved development out from that core that was created 20 years ago, and we feel that there's still a strong market for that. The overlay district tells a very positive story in and of itself. If you look at it, and again, no local pledge would come from that, but for what does it mean currently for us? It's almost $150 million in annual sales. $76 million in appraised value and generating $3.15 million in annual property taxes. Now, there are certain incentives structured there. There's a TIF and there's some TDD that generate additional sales tax to help pay for some of those projects. But that is a positive, and again, it's something that's developed over time, and we feel that those local dollars should stay here locally. So with that, let me go back to the revised district map, and I'm going to ask Corb Maxwell to come up and make a few comments about the American Royal project and the proposal that they're considering and why we think it might be a good fit for this new Star Bond district. Corb.
Thank you, George. Mayor, members of the Commission, Corb Maxwell, Pulcinelli Law Firm, appearing today on behalf of my client, the American Royal. It is a wonderful day to be here in front of you. We have been working behind the scenes on this project for a number of years. As most of you know, the American Royal has over a 100-year history in our region, and we are very excited to announce, as we did with the governor and the mayor and many other dignitaries, the option that we're working on now to move to Wyandotte County. And we see this now as one of those first steps, getting this Star Bond district created. As George said, we have many more steps to come before you in showing you plans, going through zoning, land use, and planning, doing a project plan, working on the development agreement. But we are very excited to bring forth the American Royal to Wyandotte County and all of its many visitors and many ag enthusiasts. The project itself is approximately $160 million. We are working through all of those details and look forward to bringing that, but we plan for that to be a true public-private partnership. And different than most public-private partnerships that we come before you on, there is no profit motive here. That private participation will all be charitable contributions that will be raised to be brought into this county from some of the biggest donors in our region. And so we're incredibly excited about it. We have a lot of work to do. This is just the start, but there's no better place and no better partner than Wyandotte County, and we're excited to move forward on this with you if we would be so lucky to move this forward tonight. With that, I'd stand for any questions, as would Lynn, President and CEO of the American Royal, but we ask for your vote, and we look forward to working on this with you in the future.
Thank you. If this concludes the presentation, what I'd like to do is open it up for a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak with respect to this development, you're welcome to do so at this time. So we often break this up in for or against, so we'll do it that way. If you would like to speak in favor of this project, to please come forward at this time. Let the record, you want to speak in favor of the project? Okay, come on forward. State.
More questions on it. I'm in favor of the American Royal. My wife's family owns some property west of 118th Street.
Your name, please, sir?
My name is Robert Yocum. And my wife's family owns 3 acres there west of 118th Street. And we kind of had some questions on, the American Royal is not going to develop that far west, is it? To west of 118th Street?
Okay, we'll just write down the questions, and then
Okay.
we'll have them come up and answer those.
Okay, and also we was wondering if that was going to change the property values of that acreage too, the 3 acres that they own. That was another question. And they also, some of the family members wanted to know if there was going to be any property seized by eminent domain. That was some of the questions that they had. But I believe they're all very excited to hear the American Royal is coming to that area. So that'll be all for me.
Okay, so your questions, just so we're clear, the first one is, are we going to develop west of 118th? The second is, what impact will that have on adjoining property values? And the third is, will any property be taken with eminent domain?
Correct.
Is that correct? All right, we'll be sure to answer those in a moment. Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of the project at this time? Let the record show no one else coming forward. Would anyone like to speak in opposition to this project at this time? Let the record show no one coming forward to speak in opposition. We will close the public hearing. I will ask the presenter to come forward and address the questions that were raised.
Thank you, Mayor, and wonderful questions. The American Royal is currently negotiating for the land parcel within this 300 acres. We have been working very hard with landowners in that area. One of the landowners, Mr. Allison and his family, we actually executed an LOI just hours ago for 65 acres, approximately 65 acres that are on the east side of 118th Street. That family, through a multiple partnership, has 40 acres on the west side of 118th Street. We're working with them and discussing options for that, but we have come to no finality on that. So the approximate footprint of the American Royal is somewhere around 65 acres up to 100 acres. So we're working sort of in that realm as we continue to design the site. Property values in eminent domain, I think that there is no ability to do eminent domain anymore. That has been taken away, and so that is not a concern in any form or fashion, nor would that ever be the plan of the American Royal to ever look at that, or I believe any of these commissioners sitting before us. And property values, as the American Royal, and it would be owned by the American Royal, it would actually likely be tax exempt from that, as it's a full not-for-profit that would own that component of it. But development in the area is likely a good thing, but would it affect vacant parcels that stay vacant at that time or otherwise? I bet it would have very little impact on that. So others may be able to speak to those parts of it better, but wanted to communicate our thoughts.
Can you speak to land valuation in terms of usage vis-a-vis what's around it, in terms of if it's ag?
Yeah, and depending on the use of the property around it, if you're, you could see some impact on property values that come in the area. I mean, I think but you've seen the development that's happened to date with all of Village West, and I don't know what impact that may have had on the property. So that's been a very, obviously changed the value of that area a great deal. Typically, the property that does not have the direct impact on it doesn't get a great change in value until you start to see a lot more of it sell or move right around you if something else were to come into the area and build from that perspective. So I wouldn't anticipate it would change. If it's ag property, it will stay ag. It's not going to change. No, we're not going to change it doesn't make it. It's what your use is today. It's not what somebody might think might be a different use for your property. So it would stay at that ag value and be valued from that perspective. And I'll just touching as Mr. Maxwell talked about eminent domain, just clear. I mean, the only thing that could come is we can use it if we do streets. If some point in the future we were to improve 118th Street, and I don't know if you touch 118th, but that's really no different than we would have today. If we were to need to expand that road, which if we did improve it, we probably would expand it a little bit for width. I don't think that's probably a big 4-lane, 5-lane road. It'd just be a good, nice 2-lane road. So that is where we have the power of eminent domain. We'd go to the homeowners and talk about that, but that would be the only chance or the only opportunity we have to use eminent domain is for a public project.
It should be noted, I get this question quite a bit about eminent domain as well. The eminent domain that was used for the Speedway was allowed under that state law at the time that allowed for eminent domain to be used for private development. We can no longer use eminent domain for private development, only for public use. So certainly for a road project, a sewer project, a school, a park, those are the kinds of things that the cities in the state of Kansas can still use eminent domain for, but no longer for private development. And I think that's an important clarification. All right, so we have concluded the public hearing and addressed the questions raised. We will now turn to the commission. Commissioner Walker.
I'd pose this question, I suppose, to, I briefly talked with the county administrator.
Sir, can you speak directly into the microphone, please?
I briefly spoke with the county administrator prior to the meeting about west of 118th Street. And I'm curious, and I'm also baffled as to why we have, the response I got was that we might do some improvement on the corner there at 118th. But I don't understand why we don't go all the way to parallel to take that property. I mean, we're doing this now. We're not going to get another shot at this property to include it. Development, if our dreams are and past performance, is going to proceed westward. Parallel and State Avenue are going to be the conduits for it. Why have we divided? I mean, putting it in the Starbond district does not require us to buy it. It doesn't require us to do anything but include it in there, and in the event that that can be developed, if it's a retail development, it'll help pay down the bonds. There must be, somebody made a conscious decision to just divide it in half and not go all the way to Parallel. I guess I'm just asking, what is the reason for that? And it's got to be more than we need to improve the corner, because we can always improve the corner through eminent domain.
Sure, Commissioner. I think it's a good question, and really kind of at the heart of what we're here to discuss tonight. And I mean, these are the proposed district boundaries, and if we need to make some amendments or edits tonight, you know, ultimately, even if you move forward with the district, it doesn't, until we get an ordinance that's ready for publication, it's still a work in progress. So I guess I said all that in a long-winded way to say we can still make some edits. In discussing this project with our own planning department, we kind of really talked about what does this corridor look like, and we really wanted to stay with a heavier emphasis on commercial redevelopment along State Avenue, and then just naturally as you progress further north, it probably goes from more of a commercial use into some sort of mixed use, but as you're moving towards Parallel, and then definitely on the north side of Parallel, you're really moving more into a residential zone. And so we weren't sure that any future uses of the property would really add anything to a sales tax kind of benefit district like we're creating here. And you know, and that's how we have the map the way it is. Now, there's also other development proposals that have been in areas adjacent to this. So just to the west of it, we've had a multifamily developer that owns large tracts of ground that we've tried to get their projects moving. And so we just kind of nestled this in, but you're right, it does look like we've cut half of that off. So I don't know if that satisfies your question or not, but really that is kind of the thinking we had.
Would there be any harm to raising that line all the way to Parallel, west of 118th Street?
It adds some property, and I'd probably have to ask either our attorneys, maybe Todd LaSala can comment on it, if we're adding property. I don't know if we've had proper notice for this meeting.
That's right, George. I'm sorry, but you can't do it tonight, Commissioners. You'd have to notice up another hearing to do that. And so I'd recommend that you do that by amendment if you so choose. You can remove property from this district like you're planning to do because notice has been properly given for that. So you can shrink this district, but you really can't expand it tonight. You would have to notice it up and do it by amendment.
And actually, if I could just real quick interject, I think it brings up a good point about kind of the statutory requirements, and I kind of went through the process of creating a district, but I did want to mention for the record that we did send certified mail to all the property owners and occupants in this area. Another requirement from the statute is that we get a finding of eligibility for this area from the Secretary of Commerce, and so we have that letter. It is a section in the ordinance that you're considering tonight, so those statutory requirements have been met. And so I probably should have stated that for the record earlier. Apologies.
Thank you, Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Brackett, good evening. Could you explain for me, well, first of all, the shaded area, the overlay, is that in the district or it's not in the district?
It is part of the district, and let me go back to why we shaded it differently, because we have a discussion point for it, and that is simply what the initial negotiations or discussions about the revenues generated from this area would look like. And so we shaded them differently because we're letting the developer know that the yellow area, we're not interested in contributing any local dollars from that part of it. And then the pink is a different story. But it is all part of one district. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions from the commission? I don't see any. I do want to make an additional comment about the value of star bonds. The STAR bonds are one of the most powerful economic development tools in the country, and there are communities all over the country who would love to have the power of the STAR bonds. The benefit to the local community, anywhere we can do STAR bonds, we should do STAR bonds, but they're sales tax driven. That's what they stand for, sales tax revenue bonds, which is what the STAR comes from. If you look at the current STAR bonds that have already paid off, there were no public money used to back those bonds. The project paid for those bonds entirely. $450 million were invested in STAR bonds in the Village West area, which leveraged $1.5 billion in additional private investment. So you have a $2 billion investment out there with all the numbers that you saw earlier. But think about this again, of the $450 million in STAR bonds that were just paid off, 150 of those were from Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. The other 300 million were from the state of Kansas, because your sales tax is 2/3 state and only 1/3 local. So when you use STAR bonds as an economic development tool, the power of them is that it's not just local money. Every time we do a TIF district, tax increment financing district, for a project, all the TIF comes directly out of the local government. None of it comes out of the state. You cannot TIF the state's portion of your sales tax, of the property tax. So it's all state. Well, they're only 1%. So it all is local money. The power of the STAR bonds is it's 2/3 state money. And that's where the power of it comes in, because it gives you such economic leverage. So no public funds were used to back the $450 million in STAR bonds that paid off. Only 150 of those were local, and that is paying dividends for us over and over and over again. So a great development, and that's why we'd like to pursue STAR bonds again for this district. Is there a motion to approve this district?
I move to approve the STAR bond district as proposed.
Second.
All right, it is moved and second, is properly before us. Seeing no further comment, roll call.
Roll call, Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrick.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Murguia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Motion carries 10-0.
All right, thank you all for being here. That brings us to item number 2, which is a resolution and ordinance for the U.S. Soccer National Training Center project.
Mayor, Commissioners, hello again. George Brakovich with Economic Development. This is a project that you've seen many times before, but there is a new twist to kind of the incentive structure that we had contemplated before, and just kind of want to come here before you tonight and make sure that it's clear for everyone, and it does have a required public hearing component. So I'll start with, and I believe Corb Maxwell from Polsinelli is here representing that development as well. Previous action we've taken on this. So by resolution back in April of 2015, we approved an amendment to the venture agreement as well as the development agreement that we had with On Goal for some of the soccer programming, and part of that really was to account for the new projects that we had, the National Training Center as well as kind of the expanded youth tournament fields. So subsequently after that, this elected body did approve a resolution for the use of IRBs, again, industrial revenue bonds, but those bonds were only going to be used for the sales tax project exemption certificate that the Department of Revenue gives for projects that use it. But inherent in the development agreement was a provision that the National Training Center and the youth tournament fields would be property tax exempt. And there were really two options in there. One was to create an ownership entity that would qualify for an exemption through BOTA, or secondarily through the use of IRBs for a 10-year term. And so really that's what we're here to talk about tonight. The unified government is in ownership of the ground where the youth tournament fields are going, and Angela Harshbarger on our staff made application with BOTA, and we were granted that exemption. For the National Training Center, the developers team has opted to pursue the IRB route for a 10-year abatement on the project, as opposed to creating an ownership entity that would qualify for the exemption. The subtle difference in that is if you go for the exemption through BOTA and you get 100% tax abatement, you're not paying any taxes. When you use the IRB model, you have to account for base taxes that are generated in that area. And I'll go through that in a little more detail here in a minute. The project locations, if you haven't been out west lately, don't worry, because we actually have some photos of the construction that's underway for both of the projects, and they're making great progress. But National Training Center is located at about just east of 98th and Parallel, and then the youth tournament fields are located off of 91st Street in between State and Parallel. Again, the IRB that we're considering tonight, it does contemplate the 100% tax abatement. Again, that was approved previously in that development agreement. And again, the IRB pilot, however, cannot abate those base taxes. For the parcels involved in this project that haven't already been exempted by BOTA, i.e. the youth tournament fields that we own, that equates to about $50,000 a year. So the projected pilot is an annual payment of $50,000. It does have a 10-year term, so the value of that would be $500,000 over 10 years. And we have properly advertised to consider that at a public hearing here tonight. So real quickly, the parcels, there's 3 parcels that are involved on the National Training Center site. So to the left of this photo is 98th Street. On the north is Parallel. And the biggest parcel, I think you can probably still see the red parcel outlines underneath that blue shading. The big area is a 40-acre tract that this project is leasing, has a long-term lease with Schlitterbahn for. And then the other 2 parcels, there was an old Mason's Lodge and a single-family residence that the development team had purchased as part of this project. So what's going on, or what the planned development is for that site, again, is the National Training Center. And you can see it's kind of a tiered building. The top tier there represents the NTC. The bottom level is the announced Children's Mercy Clinic that's associated with this project. Again, and the site plan kind of gives you an idea of the layout of the buildings there on the lower left, and then they've got a series of fields, or super pitch, if I'm using the term of art correctly, that translates into another 5 to 7 fields on the site. And here's the construction progress. They've graded it. You can kind of see some of the pads. And then, I know it's kind of hard to tell here, but if you look where it says NTC building, you can probably make out some of the foundations that have been poured for that structure. So then the tournament fields are located, like I said, at 91st Street. So at the bottom of this photo is State Avenue. The upper left, the blue shading, is where the National Training Center is. And so, again, to kind of locate you over back to where the tournament fields are. There are 2 parcels involved there. The larger area is where the youth tournament fields are going. You'll see a little carve out of a parcel right along 91st Street. That's a parcel that the developer has maintained. There's been a proposal to do maybe an indoor field there, but they're still going through the development process on that. Again, you can see the site plan for that area. It is a 12-field venue, and really kind of an incredible construction update on that. I mean, these projects aren't scheduled for completion until fall of next year, so I think they've taken great advantage of kind of the early good construction weather we had. You can kind of see, again, State Avenue is on the north side of this photo. 90th Street is there on the left, or 91st. And they've got 8 synthetic fields and then 4 natural grass fields. And I would assume that the natural grass field will be planted in the spring, and that's the fall opening would allow that turf to mature to a point where they can use it. So that's the end of the presentation. Again, we've always contemplated the use of IRBs, and whether it was solely for the project exemption certificate or as part of this 10-year tax abatement pilot, and what we're here tonight then to ask for your consideration on is that 10-year pilot structure. Thank you.
All right, so before we open it up to the commission, I will have the public hearing, and I will invite anyone who would like to speak. If you would like to speak in favor of this project, I'd invite you to come forward at this time. Would anyone like to speak in favor of this U.S. soccer piece?
My name is Marcia Rupp. I live at 2816 North 46th Street. And I did tell some people if this project came up again, I would come up and speak on it. I'm interested in revenue here. Let's not let the people being trained come in, these athletes, and go to Johnson County and buy all their gear. Socks, shoes, shorts, shirts. Let's have a big sports store out there. Invite someone, Dick's Sporting something, that carries all soccer gear so we can take all their money here instead of it going to Johnson County. Thank you.
Marcia, I like the way you think. All right. Anyone else like to speak in favor of this project? Let the record show no one else is coming forward. Would anyone like to speak in opposition to this project? Let the record show no one coming forward. We will now close the public hearing and open it up to the commission, either for questions, comments, or a motion.
Move to approve the resolution of intent for $90 million in IRBs as presented.
Second.
Okay, so we can do both the ordinance and the resolution at one
Move
vote?
to approve the resolution and the ordinance.
Second.
All right, it is properly before us. Seeing no further comment, roll call.
Roll call, Markley. Aye. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Regia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Motion carries 10-0.
All right, we now have on our agenda an executive session. Does someone have that motion to read?
I would move that the commission go into executive session until 9 p.m. to discuss confidential matters regarding strategy related to employer-employee negotiations as permitted under the Kansas Open Meetings Act, and that staff designated by the county administrator be present to participate in that discussion.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded that to go until 9 o'clock, so we will go from this area upstairs, and if we have a time extension, we would have to come back down here. But if we do not have a time extension, we will simply dismiss from our upstairs executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are in executive session.